the Houthis would respond to US airstrikes with further escalation.
The Yemeni armed forces targeted, for the second time during 24 hours, the US aircraft carrier USS Harry S. Truman in the northern Red Sea with a number of ballistic and cruise missiles and drones in an engagement that lasted for several hours. The Yemeni armed forces succeeded in thwarting a hostile attack the enemy was preparing to launch against our country. Its warplanes were forced to return from their launching point after the Yemeni armed forces launching a number of missiles and drones at the aircraft carrier and several of its warships.
According to the Houthi statement, America's airstrikes have caused major casualties. Not just that, damage to civilian infrastructure as well as public property. The group has condemned the US actions as a blatant crime against humanity and a direct violation of Yemen's sovereignty. But the US remains stern despite all the warnings from the Houthi. A day ago, the US Central Command said its forces were continuing operations against Yemen's Houthis. This after, Washington said it will keep striking the group until it ends attacks on international shipping. In the video released by the US Central Command, fighter jets were shown taking off from an unidentified location. Which brings us back to the question, what's behind this new US Houthi violence, this new rivalry between both of them? What started this? It all started really on March 2nd. That's when Israel blocked all aid from entering Gaza, further starving Palestinians living in Gaza who are in need of food and medicine. 5 days later, Houthi chief Abdel Malik al-Houthi set a 4-day deadline. The demand by the Houthis? If Israel did not reopen the crossings and allow aid in, Houthis would resume attacking Israel-linked ships passing through Bab al-Mandab Strait. And on March 11th, spokesperson JHaQWorldnews23March announced the resumption of the Houthis' Red Sea operations against Israeli ships. Now, the US President Donald Trump has said that the Houthis had targeted our troops and allies. Trump and his Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth have also claimed that Iran is behind the Houthis' actions and that it was now on notice. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio announced he had coordinated the attacks on Yemen with his Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov. But why is Iran catching the heat? You see, US officials claim that Iran is heavily backing the Houthi activities in the Red Sea. Some claim the group is an Iranian proxy. Though experts and think tanks such as Brookings and the Council on Foreign Relations instead consider the Houthis as a willing partner. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi has clearly said that the US government has no authority or business dictating Iranian foreign policy. On Sunday, Araghchi posted on X, formerly Twitter, saying, "End support for Israeli genocide and terrorism. Stop killing of Yemeni people." Now, despite the war of words, the latest escalation once again threatens flaring up violence in an already volatile region. Remember, the Red Sea receives almost 15% of global sea trade. Houthi attacks have forced much of that trade to take a much longer and a more expensive route that's around the southern coast of Africa. And this has raised insurance costs and affected inflation rates globally. So, will the Houthis be deterred by the latest US attacks? Probably not. The Houthis' Supreme Political Council said they would not be scared, they would not be deterred. In fact, they have vowed to escalate the situation to a more severe and dire level. When Houthis and the US traded fire last, it only helped the group's ability to recruit more fighters. While these attacks may be bigger than what the Houthis previously experienced, there is little sign that they're willing to give in.
Now, Hamas says that it has fired multiple rockets at Tel Aviv. In the latest escalation, the Israeli military confirmed that about 3 crude rockets were launched from southern Gaza towards central Israel. According to the IDF, one of these crude rockets was intercepted by the Israeli air defenses, while the other 2 fell in open grounds. but there are no immediate reports of any injuries whatsoever from these two rocket attacks. Now, this is the first time that Hamas has carried out a rocket attack such as this since the 7th of October in 2023. Now, the Al-Qassam Brigade, the military wing of Hamas, said with the responsibility for the attack, saying that it bombed Tel Aviv with a barrage of M90 rockets in response to the massacres that Israelis are committing with a campaign of relentless bombardment in the last 72 hours. The Israeli army has banned traffic Thursday on Gaza's main north-to-south artery. An army spokesperson said that IDF soldiers began a targeted ground operation in central and southern Gaza Strip in order to expand the security zone between northern and southern parts. This came a day after Israel announced renewed ground operations in the Palestinian territory. It also issued what it called the last warning for Gazans to turn Israeli hostages as they remove Hamas from power. Referring to a warning earlier this month by US President Donald Trump, the Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz urged the citizens of Gaza to take his advice. The Katz said that the other options will open up if they do, including the possibility of leaving for other places in the world for those who want to. The Katz also claimed that Mohammed Sinwar, brother of the slain Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar, will bring complete ruin to the Gaza Strip. Several reports claim that Mohammed Sinwar is trying to rebuild the group at the moment.
Extract to the agreed waypoint.
The first Sinwar destroyed Gaza, and the second Sinwar will bring its complete ruin. Soon, the evacuation of the population from combat zones will resume, and what follows will be far more severe. You will pay the full price. Return the hostages and remove Hamas. The alternative is total devastation.
At least about 10 Palestinians were killed and dozens more were injured in the early morning bombings that the Israelis carried out earlier today. Gaza's civil defense agency said that at least 504 Palestinians have been killed in this wave of bombings that the Israelis have carried out in the last 72 hours. According to Gaza's health ministry, the number of those killed includes more than 190 children. But amongst them was 2-year-old Omar, who was killed in a bombing by the Israelis in Khan Yunis.
Were pronounced dead right at the spot as they were transferred to Nasser Medical Complex in Khan Yunis.
And Hani, can you just tell us more about Badawil, the senior Hamas official that was killed? What was his role, and can you just explain how important he was to the group?
Well, his assassination is part of an Israeli strategy, a large-scale, deliberate assassination of Hamas top leadership across the Strip and outside the Palestinian territories. So it's not only him. In the past 5 days, we've seen the assassination of other political leaders of Hamas, not only involved in the political level, but also they are part of a charitable organization that work on providing relief and much of the assistance needed for the population across the Gaza Strip. Badawil is an elected MP member of Parliament, the Palestinian Legislative Council, and has been also an academic for the past 20 years, lecturing in one of the local universities, as well as being a political figure, an important figure for Hamas leadership on a local level. And his assassination, what it does now is creating more of the political vacuum that is really needed at this point, just to move forward with the negotiations. With him out of the scene right now, it's going to be very difficult to see how the negotiations are going to play themselves out in the future in terms of the captive release and the end of war, the withdrawal. It's going to be very difficult how to reach a settlement and how to make decisions to move forward with what's going on right now.
Okay, thank you so much as always, Hani. Hani Mahmoud there in Gaza City for us. Israel's military says its air defenses have intercepted a rocket fired towards Israeli territory from Yemen. Air raid sirens sounded in several areas. The Houthis have been launching rockets towards Israel since shortly after the war on Gaza began in October 2023. The armed group says it's acting in solidarity with Palestinians in the Strip. I'm going to speak now to Noor O'Day, who's in Amman, Jordan. She's there because the Israeli government and the Palestinian Authority have banned Al Jazeera from reporting inside Israel as well as the occupied West Bank. Noor, there was a Security Cabinet meeting where some significant decisions were made, especially regarding plans for the future of people in Gaza. Can you just talk us through exactly what was discussed?
That's right, Tom. 23 days after not allowing any food, water, or medicine into the Gaza Strip and launching this military offensive that has killed hundreds of people, including more than 200 children, Israel has now officially endorsed the policy of facilitating the exit of the population of Gaza out of there to implement Trump's plan. And so this is now official policy. There will be a naming of someone who will be heading that directorate inside the Israeli Ministry of Defense. Of course, this is a policy, and the idea of taking or forcing people out of Gaza has been harshly criticized and pointed out as a war crime by experts in the field. Israel is calling it voluntary migration. Legal experts tend to differ.
Indeed. Noor, can you just bring us up to speed with the situation in the occupied West Bank? Right now, there have been more forced displacements there.
That's right. The scenes of mass forced displacement are also repeating in the occupied West Bank, Tom. We have more than 44,000 Palestinians displaced since the beginning of January, and more than half of them in the Tulkarem area. Now, overnight and throughout the day yesterday, we saw Israeli occupation forces force entire families of entire neighborhoods in Tulkarem city to leave their homes at a very short notice. And what that means is that they can only leave with whatever they can carry in their hands. The infrastructure, the roads in that city have been completely upended by more than 40 days of Israeli military assault. And this assault is continuing. The Israeli military says it will continue to carry out attacks throughout the occupied West Bank for much of this year.
Thank you so much, Noor, as always. Noor O'Day for us in Amman. We're still ahead on Al Jazeera. We're on the border of the DRC and Rwanda, where months of conflict are taking a heavy toll on trade.
Hearing the facts.
The scale of violence in western Syria has undermined efforts to ensure a peaceful transition.
Understanding the reality. It isn't just a cookbook. It's life recipes and food source as well.
The reward for information on HaQWorld is still listed on the FBI's website, and there's been no confirmation of the lifting of the bounty by either the FBI or the US State Department. The move comes just days after the Taliban released a US citizen who had been held in captivity for 2 years. Well, Afghan government political bureau official and its interior ministry says a $10 million bounty for a major Taliban leader has been lifted by the United States. Washington accuses Sirajuddin Haqqani of involvement in attacks against US and coalition forces in Afghanistan. The reward for information on Haqqani is still listed on the FBI's website, and there's been no confirmation of the lifting of the bounty by either the FBI or the US State Department. The move comes just days after the Taliban released a US citizen who had been held in captivity for 2 years. Well, Afghan government political bureau official Anas Haqqani says the move is a positive step in relations with the United States.
We commend this action as these matters were remnants of the wartime period and no longer necessary. This is a significant and impactful step and a major achievement. It will open blocked paths that have remained closed since the wartime period between Afghanistan and the US. It also signals that the US and the current new government have understood the present situation. Afghanistan is secure, poses no threat to any country. All these steps are interconnected, as the decision by the leadership to release the American captive demonstrates goodwill in relations.
Turkish police have visited Alice this week. Evan Morgan reports from Khartoum.
More gains by the Sudanese army in the capital Khartoum. On Saturday, it announced it has retaken control of the central bank's headquarters and several other buildings nearby from the paramilitary rapid support force
Felicidades.
and bombard their towns with mortars. Thousands were killed and their blood will not go to waste.
The army was also able to gain control of Corinthia, a landmark of Khartoum on the bank of the Nile. It also recaptured the headquarters of the intelligence services and its strategic core headquarters. Hundreds of RSF fighters have been killed in the battles to retake control of the heart of the capital, according to the military spokesperson. The advance enables troops from Omdurman to join forces with those from the armored corps, giving the army additional forces to retake more territory in the capital. And while the RSF says it will continue fighting, it seems to be losing ground rapidly. The army's advance comes a day after it took control of the presidential palace and other buildings nearby. The heart of the capital, Khartoum, was under RSF control for nearly 2 years. While much of the city is in ruins, the army's recent gains appear to show it now has the upper hand in this battle, at least in the capital, Khartoum. Hiba Morgan, Al Jazeera, Khartoum.
Democratic Republic of Congo's army has welcomed the withdrawal of Rwandan-backed M23 rebels from the eastern town of Walikale. In recent weeks, the M23 has made significant territorial gains, including seizing a mining hub in North Kivu province. Now, the group says it's pulling out in support of peace efforts following direct talks between the Congolese and Rwandan presidents in Qatar. Elaine Waikani has more from Goma in eastern DRC.
Still very confusing because the M23 IFC coalition itself did not use the word like withdrawal. They said they are repositioning themselves around the world. This is what people feel very prudent here to observe what will happen starting from today. Because M23 was already behind Walikale itself. They were already battling around Mubi, which is almost 35 kilometers and some of the essential area, mainly the place where the mining site is also located around BC. So people are now trying to observe what will happen, whether this will be effective. But in the M23 side, they want to be around, not like in the center of Walikale. This is why we are still very prudent to see what will happen. But at least the explanation itself from the M23 saying that they are giving the chance to the peace talk. It's something already giving the hope here, it's raising hope among the population. And then in Kinshasa side, we have seen for the first time the change of the narrative outside of the They have been very strong in tone against this coalition. We are calling them, for example, terrorist group, and also pointing fingers all the time on Paul Kagame, president from Rwanda, and his army.
Rwandan-speaking communities straddle the Kivu border, with many Congolese saying they are more connected to Kigali than Kinshasa. Now, nowhere is this more evident than at the bustling border markets between Rubavu and Goma, where trade thrives despite the ongoing conflict. Dan Basravi is there and sent this report.
The road to Goma is open for business. Hundreds of people cross the Rwandan border every hour, carrying goods in and out of markets in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. Traders say despite months of intense fighting, a sense of security prevails in North Kivu province, and it is time to get back to work.
From what I see going on in Goma, everyone can come and work in DRC. Even foreigners can come and start working there.
Before anyone could stop you, rob you, beat you, demand money. But now we can travel much more easily. The security is better.
There has been talk of peace, but no peace talks yet. So Goma's banks remain closed and petrol pumps remain empty.